What's good, y'all? My name's Joey, and last year I quit my 9 to 5 software job to travel the world. And I really don't want to go back. So now what I'm doing is building web applications so that I don't have to, and I could keep traveling the world. And what I've learned about building web applications is that it's really not that difficult if you understand exactly how they work. So in this video, I'm going to show you. Okay, the first thing we need to talk about when it comes to building web apps is the front end. This is what you see when you go to a web app, and this is how you navigate and click through it. These front ends are built with different frameworks like React, Next, or Vue, and all these frameworks do is just make it easier for you to organize and actually build the app. For example, this app is something that I built with React. We have a sidebar on the left here that lets you navigate to different pages. And then on each page, you have different visuals, different buttons that give you different functionality. Nothing crazy. And now once you have your front end actually built, you need to host it somewhere so that people can actually access it with something like Cloudflare. All right, let's talk about AI because it's 2026 and we're talking about web applications. So of course we have to talk about AI. AI makes it ridiculously easy to have a front end. It can literally give you a UI in seconds that's really high quality. But the problem is people get stuck here because they think now they have this pretty UI, they have a web app, but it doesn't actually work. It's literally just a pretty screen. It's like having a nice car with no engine. So in order to actually continue and build a functional web app, you need to understand the next pieces and have AI help you build all of the pieces in order to have something that works. So this moves us into our second piece, which is our backend. Okay, so we talked about how our front end is a pretty screen that you or the user sees. Our back end, however, is the data that actually makes that front end work. It's the data that the front end uses to actually accomplish and do things and be functional for the user. For example, think of like going to LinkedIn and creating a profile. All that information about you that you entered into the system has to be sent and stored somewhere in a database. Or think about using a web app that gives you the ability to change from like light mode to dark mode. That value of dark mode needs to be stored somewhere and associated to your profile so that every time you log in, it knows that you've selected dark mode. For the app I showed you, I'm using Google's BigQuery. And again, this just stores all the data I need to actually make my app work. And there's a bunch of different backend databases that you could use. There's MySQL, PostgreSQL, there's Firebase, which works a little differently than the others, but there's a bunch of different types you can use. And it all really depends on how exactly you need your app to work. Okay, so now we have our front end, and then we have our back end, which is the data that our front end uses to actually work. But right now, they're two separate things. So, how do we connect them and use them together? This leads us into the last piece I really want to talk about APIs. We use APIs to connect our front end with our back end. So, our front end can use the API to pull data from our database and use it however it needs to. And our front end can also use APIs to push data or update the data in our database. To make this very easy to understand, in my app, I have this heading text set to clipping campaign number 1 in my database. So every time the page loads, the API pulls that value into the page. But if I change it in my settings to something else, the API will change it. So now every time when I load my page, it will be Joey's systems instead. So APIs can pull data from your database, but also push data to your database. And there's a bunch of different services you can use to set up your own APIs. I use Google's Cloud Run. There's also AWS's Lambda, and there's a bunch more you can use. So this is how web apps work. You have your front end, which is what the user sees. You have your back end, which stores the data for the front end. And then you have APIs that connect it to. And of course, there are plenty of other pieces depending on exactly what you're trying to build, like authentication and payment layers. But really, these three ideas is what you should understand. And the best part is you can use AI to help you set all of this up really fast. You can have a fully functional web app set up, built, published in like less than an hour. But you need to be able to ask AI the right questions. And in order to do that, you need to understand how the thing you're trying to build actually works. And I'll post another video soon of me actually building a web app from start to finish. So all of this makes more sense to you and you can start building your own. Thanks for watching. Peace.